Konnichiwa, minasan. O genki desu ka? Welcome to the intermediate course of my channel. Let's learn Japanese with Eric. If you have minimal background in the Japanese language or have limited knowledge of Japanese particles, adjective, and basic verb conjugation, or how Japanese sentences are put together, please review the playlist of the basic course, which covers lessons 1 to 31, and watch the video you need makeup lessons on. Otherwise, let's begin. Hajimemashou. In this lesson, we learn how to express the modality of regret or completion. I unfortunately did this, or I completely did that. We do this by using the conjugation te-shimau. We use the te form of the verb plus the auxiliary verb shimau, which means to complete. Now, because what's completed can't be undone, the te-shimau conjugation is used to convey regret or the feeling of having made a mistake or having done something that one shouldn't have. Shimau is also conjugated here into the past and formal, as we'll see later, but not into the negative. And in plain language, te-shimau is often abbreviated as chao for te-shimau and jiao for de-shimau when the te form of the verb is ide or nde. First, let's look at the te form of verbs, which is the one needed to form this conjugation. If you recall the 10 basic verb conjugations, this is the one we need. And as in our past lessons, let's do a quick review of how to make this. And as usual, there are three major categories of Japanese verbs: the category 1 or root-dropping verbs, the category 2 or last hiragana changing verbs, and category 3 verbs or the irregular verbs. For a more detailed explanation of all their basic verb conjugations, please review lessons 26 to 30 of our English playlist. To make the te form of root-dropping verbs, drop the ru and add te. For example, the verb taberu, which means to eat. Drop the ru, add te to form tabete, which is our te form. For last hiragana changing verbs, the last hiragana of the dictionary form is not dropped, but changes to something else. These are the 9 kinds of endings: kugusu, bumunu, rutsuu. To make the te form, ku becomes ite, gu becomes ide, su becomes shite, bumunu all turn to nde, and rutsuu all become utte. For conjugating category 2 verbs, it's the verb ending you need to pay attention to and what it turns into. As for the 5 commonly used irregular verbs, we only use suru, kuru, and iku to form the te-shimau conjugation. The last 2, aru and da, do not participate to form the modality of regret or completion. The te form of suru is shite, kuru becomes kite, and iku becomes itte. Now, shimau, which means to complete, is a category 2 verb, and when conjugated into its 10 basic, this is how it looks like. It is not used in the negative. What you'll hear are the affirmative conjugations shimau, shimatta for plain, shimaimasu and shimaimashita for formal, the te form shimatte, and the conjunctive shimai. Now let's look at some examples. The sentence, I unfortunately slept after coming home. To sleep is neru, a category 1 root-dropping verb, and to come home is kairu. I'll be putting the Japanese translation underneath the English words in my examples to facilitate your translation. Then we learned how to express after in lesson 36, the te kara conjugation. So in Japanese, we say, kaite kara nete shimaimashita. Kaite kara nete shimaimashita. And in plain form, kaite kara nete shimatta. Kaite kara nete shimatta. We don't need to translate the word unfortunately because that feeling is conveyed when using the te-shimau modality. With the use of te-shimau for this sentence, the nuance here is that after coming home, the speaker did not intend to fall asleep, but fell asleep, maybe because he was so tired. Hence the expression of regret for this involuntary action. What's important is that you imbibe the feeling of regret when using the te-shimau conjugation. Next example, Sleeping Beauty ate the apple. We all know she fell into a deep sleep after doing so. To eat is taberu, a category 1 root dropping verb, and sleeping beauty is nemureru mori no bijo, which translates literally to the beautiful girl who sleeps in the forest. And the Japanese is nemureru mori no bijo ga ringo o tabete shimaimashita. Nemureru mori no bijo ga ringo o tabete shimaimashita. And in plain form, nemureru mori no bijo ga ringo o tabete shimatta. Nemureru mori no bijo ga ringo o tabete shimatta. Again, there is the feeling of regret here that she did the wrong thing by eating the apple. Next example, because it'll spoil, please put the food in the fridge. To spoil or rot is kusaru, a category 2 verb, and in Japanese we say kusatte shimau kara tabemono o reizouko ni irete kudasai. Kusatte shimau kara tabemono o reizouko ni irete kudasai. In this example, the te-shimau conjugation is in the subordinate clause, because it'll spoil. Hence, we can only use the plain form, kusatte shimau. Irete kudasai is a request, and we tackled how to form requests, the te kudasai conjugation, in lesson 39. Next example, because you'll catch a cold, wear a jacket. To catch a cold is kaze o hiku. Kaze o hiku. This is a set phrase. We conjugate the verb hiku here. And so in Japanese we say, kaze o hiite shimau kara jacket o kinasai. Kaze o hiite shimau kara jacket o kinasai. Kinasai is a polite command, like what a mom would say to a child. If you want to be very polite, you can use the request conjugation te kudasai and say, kaze o hiite shimau kara jacket o kite kudasai. Kaze o hiite shimau kara jacket o kite kudasai. And if you want to give a rough command, you can say, kaze o hiite shimau kara jacket o kiro. Kaze o hiite shimau kara jacket o kiro. Next example, she married him. To marry is kekkon suru, a category 3 compound verb. Here we conjugate suru, but not kekkon, which is the noun part of the compound verb. To give a tinge of regret about the marriage, that it wasn't a good fit, in Japanese we say, kanojo wa kare to kekkon shite shimaimashita. Kanojo wa kare to kekkon shite shimaimashita. And in plain form, kanojo wa kare to kekkon shite shimatta. Kanojo wa kare to kekkon shite shimatta. Now let's illustrate completion in this next example. The sentence, my younger brother drank all the juice. To drink is nomu, a category 2 verb. One's own younger brother is ototo, and juice is juice. In Japanese, ototo ga juice o nonde shimaimashita. Ototo ga juice o nonde shimaimashita. And in plain form, ototo ga juice o nonde shimatta. Ototo ga juice o nonde shimatta. We don't need to translate the word all because that is implied in the conjugation te-shimau. If you'd like to review how to refer to family members in Japanese, please see lesson 14. Another example of completion, the sentence, eat all the pizza. Here we're doing a rough command, and so in Japanese we say, pizza o tabete shimae. Pizza o tabete shimae. Now let's do some drills. Try to say these in Japanese using the te-shimau conjugation in the plain form. So, te-shimau. The Japanese translation of the verbs are written underneath the English word to facilitate things. So, first example, how do you say unfortunately died? In Japanese, that's shinde shimatta. Shinde shimatta. You say this about someone's unexpected death or a pet that was maybe run over by a car. Next one, unfortunately handed it over. In Japanese, watashite shimatta. Watashite shimatta. Maybe you were mugged and forced to hand over your bag. Next one, to overhear or hear by mistake, hear by accident. In Japanese, kiite shimatta. Kiite shimatta. You say this when you hear something that you shouldn't have. Next example, unfortunately killed. In Japanese, koroshite shimatta. 殺してしまった. You say this when one killed someone unintentionally. In our next examples, please use the formal past of te-shimau, which is te-shimaimashita. First example, unfortunately went home. In Japanese, kaite shimaimashita. Kaite shimaimashita. You say this when someone comes looking for somebody and that person has already gone home. Kaite shimaimashita. Next one, unfortunately saw. Answer, mite shimaimashita. Mite shimaimashita. You say this when, for example, you see a confidential letter accidentally left on the table, or someone who drops their towel by mistake after stepping out of the shower so you see them naked. Mite shimaimashita. Next one, unfortunately said. In Japanese, itte shimaimashita. You say this, say, in the heat of anger, you say something to your friend that you regret later on. Next example, unfortunately told. In Japanese, hanashite shimaimashita. Hanashite shimaimashita. Maybe you told someone's secret to someone else because you couldn't keep a secret, and now you regret it. Hanashite shimaimashita. Now let's use the plain non-past conjugation, te-shimau. First example, will unfortunately sell. In Japanese, utte-shimau. Utte-shimau. You say this when, for example, someone is forced to sell something, maybe because of financial difficulty. Utte-shimau. Next example, will unfortunately meet. In Japanese, atte-shimau. Atte-shimau. Perhaps two enemies accidentally meeting at a party. Atte-shimau. Next example, will unfortunately buy. Answer, katte-shimau. Katte-shimau. Perhaps you're a compulsive shopper and with a credit card, you just can't stop shopping. Katte-shimau. Next one, will unfortunately go. Answer in Japanese, itte-shimau. Itte-shimau. You can say this when you're running late, and if you don't make it on time, the bus will leave. Itte-shimau. For this last set of practice, let's try using the plain form shortcuts. For this, te-shimau changes to chao, while de-shimau changes to jiao. First example, will unfortunately forget. Answer, wasurete shimau changes to wasurechao. Wasurechao. You might say this when someone doesn't take notes and simply relies on memory, but then they forget. Wasurechao. Next example, unfortunately got on. We have the past tense here. Answer, notte-shimatta becomes nocchatta. Nocchatta. You say this when you get on the wrong bus or train. Nocchatta. Next one, will unfortunately choose. In Japanese, erande-shimau changes to eranjao. Eranjao. Maybe you'll choose the wrong food on the menu just because you chose an attractive photo, but then when you get the dish, it's not really that delicious. Eranjao. Last example, unfortunately swam. It's past tense again. In Japanese, oyoijatta. Oyoijatta. Maybe you lost your surfboard in the waves and so you had to swim back to shore. Oyoijatta. To summarize, in this video, we learned how to express regret or completion. I unfortunately will do or did, or will completely do or did this or that. For this, we use the formula te-shimau. This is the te form of the verb plus the auxiliary verb shimau, which means to complete. This is the non-past tense plain. And we say te-shimaimasu for formal. As for the past tense, we say te-shimatta for plain and te-shimaimashita for formal. Te-shimau abbreviates to chao and de-shimau shortens to jiao in plain style language. And te-shimatta shortens to chatta or jatta. And this ends our lesson. So I'll see you in the next one. Gambatte kudasai. If you're serious about becoming fluent in Japanese, it's important to practice daily, learn grammar, and build up vocabulary. My whole course is designed to give you a strong basic foundation in the Japanese language that you can build solidly on. So please click like, share, or subscribe, and watch the next video in the series. 日本語の勉強に頑張ってください。じゃあ、またね。